All right, welcome everyone. You're here for the Silicon Valley Agile Project, which is just a great think tank meetup where I like to have some of the top presenters in Agile. So today we are very lucky to have the esteemed Joshua Barnes presenting for us. Joshua is the founder of Process Mentors and the head of the business agility practice there. And Process Mentors is a PMI authorized training partner, focusing on training, assessment, and coaching services. And Joshua's a leader in the Disciplined Agile community and recognized for his mastery of Disciplined Agile. He's currently one of only 8 Disciplined Agile Value Stream consultant trainers and the first one in the world. Joshua is a Disciplined Agile coach, a value stream consultant, as well as a Disciplined Agile senior scrum master, Disciplined Agile coach, etc. And of course, he is a Disciplined Agile coach instructor. And he's trained thousands of people in both co-located as well as virtual live formats. And he does support the PMI Disciplined Agile community. And I did get my Disciplined Agile Scrum Master certification from Joshua as well, so I know he's really great in terms of his training. And he does have lots of coaching experience. He has the organizations apply Agile Lean principles to achieve business agility, solution development experience, and supports organizations to enable delivery of value sooner, limiting risk, and becoming flexible to changing conditions by focusing on sustainable change. He's established and led enterprise-wide transformation programs for organizations adopting Agile frameworks. Joshua has significant expertise in helping organizations adapt quickly to changing technology and cutting through complexity to focus on building solutions that meet business needs. He has established and led enterprise-wide transformation programs for organizations adopting Agile frameworks and has significant expertise in helping organizations adapt quickly. And today, Joshua is going to be talking about one of his favorite topics of expertise, which is Disciplined Agile Value Stream consulting. So with that, Joshua, would you like to take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Gail. And I have to say that might be the most comprehensive introduction I've ever heard. So okay. Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, as Gail said, this is one of my favorite areas to work with organizations on value stream management. And specifically today, I'm going to focus in primarily on the minimum business increment, which is a critical part of DA's VSM approach. So I'm going to just click right past all of that since Gail thoroughly covered it. So today I'm going to just very quickly cover a little bit on just level setting from a value stream perspective. Some of the things that I'm going to be touching on. Again, I'll get into the heart of the minimum business increment. And then we'll also take a look at how the minimum business increment combined with what we call the idealized value stream provides a strategy for organizations to be able to unblock a lot of the value that they potentially could be delivering. So just to kind of get us all on the same page as far as what a value stream is, so it's a set of actions that takes place to add value to a customer from an initial request, something coming from a customer, or something that from a need perspective a stakeholder has identified, all the way through to the time where we can put that into the hands of a customer, and that customer can be either internal or external. So what we focus on is value streams always begin and end with a customer. And organizations can, depending on the size and complexity of their product offerings, can have 10, hundreds, even thousands of value streams. And then in addition to that, right, value streams can intersect with each other to create value networks. So there's a tremendous opportunity when we start really understanding and then looking to apply value stream management. So I'm going to just start off by looking at something from a very simplistic perspective and how and I'm not going to use Microsoft beyond this initial couple of points, but Microsoft has value streams, right? So Microsoft Office, right, is a value stream, and sometimes it's referred to as a product line. There's lots of products in it. And then Windows 10 and they've got all the Azure products and so forth. So Microsoft has lots of different value streams. And I want to take a look to begin with Microsoft Office. And one of the reasons why is because I'm using PowerPoint to deliver this presentation. So one of the things that we see a lot of focus on, and DA has a lot of this as well, right? And that's why the infusion of more value stream management content has been such a great thing that we've seen over these past 2 years. Single product focus. So what I mean by that is if we were looking at a new enhancement for a new slide transition, now, I mean, that's going to be in PowerPoint, right? I mean, we're not going to see a slide transition in, a product like Outlook. So the focus here is that, typically a single product and an enhancement like that could be delivered by a single development team. And I'm going to focus a little bit on just the development value stream, but I'm going to tie in 2 others as well. Throughout the talk today. So yeah, I mean, a lot of times we want to have multiple teams that are supporting a product like PowerPoint or product of that significance. We're probably going to have lots of teams. But when we start taking a look at functionality like spelling and grammar checking, that is across all these products. So now we've got more complexity, right? We have multiple products and multiple teams that are going to be needed to bring that enhancement into action, right? And so this is one of the things that value stream management really brings focus to and really starts to identify some of the constraints that a lot of organizations are challenged with that as value stream consultants we can help make inroads into. And one of the most important things is the minimum business increment. Now, in addition to all the things that Gail covered in my background, I have been coaching organizations to get the benefit out of Disciplined Agile since it was originally released back in 2012. And the predecessor to that, I mean, Disciplined Agile being sort of an aggregation of really great strategies and practices and techniques and all the things that work from the existing prescriptive frameworks that are out there, other bodies of knowledge like agile modeling, agile data, different approaches. Even now, PMBOK 7 is in DA to some degree. So the minimum business increment is something that I feel has been one of the most important additions for quite a long time. We touch on this in some of the DA trainings, the Disciplined Agile Scrum Master course and the Senior Scrum Master course, but it isn't until we start getting into the Value Stream Consultant course that we really, I think, start to see the impact that this can have to organizations. So what is an MBI? So it is one of the strategies, one of the ways that we can enable improving the flow of value from a delivery standpoint within our value streams. So here are some of the attributes for an MBI. So identifying the smallest amount of value that a customer can benefit from. So we're trying to find the smallest thing we can do that we can put into the hands of our customer, right? So we get feedback sooner. We understand if we should keep going in that direction, right? Should we keep investing in additional increments, or do we need to move on to something else that'll be more important? It's a container of information, right? This is a strategy for bridging the communication throughout the entire value stream. So I'm going to focus a lot on the development value stream, what we typically would see in the IT area. But we also have a supporting value stream, and we have an operational value stream that we absolutely need to attend to when we're bringing value to customers. So again, it includes identifying the value-adding, flow-oriented activities from these 3 value streams. Right. Supporting value stream, those are things like marketing and sales and legal and procurement and vendor management. And the operational value stream isn't just IT operations. It's the actual support to our customers, right? Again, a lot of times we use examples of things like financial institutions, right? I mean, we've got IT products that we interact with as customers, but we also have physical locations that we have to go in and interact with people that are supporting us as that financial institution's customers. That is what we're seeing here in the operational value stream. So, why should we consider moving to this in organizations? Well, one of the things is that it brings focus, right? Again, by its definition, we're trying to determine the next smallest thing that we can do. It ensures completeness. What we identify is not just what we have to do from a Microsoft PowerPoint perspective, right? A single product. Are there enhancements that are needed to roll functionality out across multiple products and the development value stream? And then again, what are the other value-adding activities that are going to be needed from either the supporting or the operational side? Easier to sequence the work identified as the increments are the smallest thing we can do. And I'll cover I'm going to cover an example of what I consider to be a highly complex MBI, something that's going to take many, many months to deliver potentially, to the lower or less complicated MBIs, which might be something we can get out in a short time period, like 2 weeks. Understand the capacity of the people that's going to do the value-adding work. What we want to also ensure as we make decisions from a portfolio management perspective, again, what are we going to invest in? That we pull that work into our workflow when we have the capacity to not just start the work, but to get the work done. Because there's a cost in not being able to get that all the way through to the end. And that's going to be one of the things that I'll focus on visually in the next couple of slides. The last thing is, it's a mechanism that helps to provide clarity around what to align around. How do we make sure these small things we're doing are supporting a strategic objective, right? Or an initiative that is supporting a strategic objective. So MBIs help with a very common problem that not all, but a lot of organizations still struggle with. And again, I'm going to focus on the development value stream, but I'll tie the other two in as well. So, right, a lot of organizations have annual budgeting process. A significant amount of publicly traded companies have an annual budgeting process. And we're probably all familiar with this, right? So we get into a time period towards the end of our year, right? If we have a 12/31, end of year, we're going to probably be seeing somewhere in the October, November timeframe this annual budgeting process. And so what happens is I'm going to take a look at a value stream here. This was an example derived from an actual customer that we've supported. And in this value stream, which was focusing on selling products direct to consumers through an e-commerce site, right? So we have the direct-to-consumer sales portal, and we have a marketing platform, inventory management, a fulfillment system, and then an innovations platform. And what happens so often is we have ideas, right? Requests from customers, needs that are identified from our stakeholders all throughout the year. And then these get kind of bundled together, whether it's a business case or a project charter or whatever the container of information is. And we get into our annual budgeting process. And then everybody's competing for their scope of work to be approved and funded. And so what happens is, we end up with a bunch of projects, big project and, another big and some small projects, medium, I don't know, it's a smattering of projects, right? And then what happens is we get into that new year, we kick off a lot of projects, right? So what happens in this context, and this is a technique also that is used, I started doing this just using whiteboards, and now we've got tools like Miro, visual collaboration platforms. We can do this virtually. But one of the things to try and get some awareness in organizations is if you look at these projects, there's a lot of so Big Blue project, right? That was my direct-to-consumer sales portal. Lots of disparate functionality, right? Lots of different capabilities, new features that are bringing enhancements to the product. Now, what I don't have in here is just additional stories and defects and the other classes of service, the other types of work we can do just to kind of keep the graphics a little bit simple. So we have all this work that is in this big project. Again, this is the $1 million project. We're going to kick it off, and we're going to see other projects that are going to get kicked off throughout the year, right? A lot of them are going to start at the beginning of the year. Some are going to be a little bit smaller, and we'll have another project that starts. But here's the thing. If I were to take a look at this functionality and to say, okay, if I could select, one feature or a couple of features and ask for the Big Blue project, right, my sales portal team, could we potentially deliver this? If you do those handful of things and that was the size of your project, could we release that to the customers and get value, right? Hopefully a return on investment. And oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes it's like, well, yeah, to bring this new functionality in, we have to make updates, right? We have other enhancements. We have an enhancement to our inventory management system. We have an enhancement to our fulfillment system for this new functionality to be consumed. So if we were to, let's get rid of all the other stuff and just take a look at that. So here's the minimum of the work out of all those projects that would need to be completed for us as customers of this organization to be able to then interact with that functionality and get some value out of it. So this, if I were to draw a box around it, this is an MBI. This is a complicated MBI because it's cutting across, I mean, there's enhancements across multiple products. But if these are the things that need to be done, and if we get the functionality in our sales portal, but we when we have a dark release, we're going to do feature toggling, like that work is done, but we can't do anything with it until we update these other products. Well, that content is aging, right? And there's a cost of delay associated with that, and that's what we want to focus on. So let's get back to our annual cycle here. So the very first step, if we are in a position to help an organization adopt this minimum business increment strategy, is that we want to go from all of these ideas getting packaged together into a big project to identifying before we make an investment decision and before we make an approval to get an MBI to the point where we're going to be able to prove that, right? And what would that do for us? Well, for one thing is we're going to be able to have much better awareness. We're going to be able to manage dependencies, coordinate activities across these teams. Now we do have, again, I can't cover all this in an hour, but we do have different types of value creation structures, different ways to form teams to be able to alleviate having to be, super duper or super awesome at coordinating activities. But in this case, what we would see is, we could be in January, right, beginning of the year, have this MBI versus a big project. And hopefully you're making the connection, like MBIs are really what we should be moving to versus projects. Because they're discrete scopes of work. So values delivered here versus all the way out here, right? We have to get all those projects to fruition. And so we have all this work that's being done over a long period of time. Now, not saying that every organization is still doing these big giant projects, but I can tell you from a lot of the customers we support, that's still somewhat prevalent. So I'm gonna take us back for a minute, and that's kind of the first step we could do. But even better, and this is something that we do cover in value stream management, is so instead of funding and trying to say, well, let's come up with all these ideas, and then at the end of the year come up with these MBIs and fund those, that's a step in the right direction. But if we could maybe still have our annual budgeting, right? How much money we're going to spend over the next time period, the next 12 months. But we're going to make discrete decisions on what we're going to fund, and we're moving to a quarterly approach. What we can do is we can see that, we can start filling up what work we can pull into the workflow because we can get that done and get it released. Now, some of these MBIs that I have here, especially, the one that's most colorful, that's a big one, right? That's going to take more than potentially 3 months to get done. Some of these other ones are smaller and we'll get them done sooner. So what I will touch on in the idealized value stream is we have a business backlog. This is part of the business side of the value stream. This is part of how we discover what we should be potentially doing next. And so if we're using something like a business backlog, and the business backlog contains minimum business increments, and it can also contain minimum viable products. So we still need to do innovation work. So that's another type of container of work. We typically can have more autonomous or completely autonomous teams because, again, we don't even know if we've got something we can monetize or productize. But for MBIs, it's where we have existing products and we're enhancing them, and we're going to expect a return on that. So the business backlog, if you think of it like a product backlog, just much further up in the value stream. Right? Again, this is how we're making decisions from an investment perspective. We'll do value flow planning. Another significant thing we have in the Disciplined Agile Value Stream Management approach. We have techniques called value flow planning, and we're making decisions around what's in that business backlog that we can pull into the workflow because we have the adequate capacity of the team or the teams. In the development value stream, and again, what I'm not showing because these graphics would get super complicated, is also attending to the supporting value stream and the operational value stream. So there is awareness of what we need to do to really, again, if we have a great product that we're new functionality we're putting in one of our products, and there's no marketing behind it, nobody knows it's there. We might not be able to hit the outcomes that we're looking for, or again, get the return on investment without that. So we have to consider that as well. So yeah, I mean, we're going to see, again, this business backlog, we should see movement in it. We've got, the next quarterly funding cycle. And if we're focusing on these smaller things, we're also going to be identifying new MBIs, right? How is the market responding? How are the customers that are utilizing this functionality getting benefit from it? Or are we not seeing an uptake in it? Should we pivot to something else? This is how we help organizations not only improve the flow of delivery value, but help them achieve business agility, right? How can we do things, on a much more timely basis and react to our customers, react to what's going on? This is a key way that supports that. So, MBI is a strategy for identifying the smallest amount of value that a customer can benefit from. And again, we're going to have just like stories, right? Like user stories. We have some that are like, they're going to be sized to the point where that's the biggest thing or most complex thing we could do in a given time period, whether we're using an iterative approach or we're using a flow-based approach, and we're looking to deliver things in a particular, on a particular cadence. So a less complex MBI is what I like to say is, it's an enhancement to maybe a single product delivered by a single team, minimal impact or changes to operations. Again, there's always something, right? Somebody's got to know that something else is, new functionality is being released or some update's been made. Versus the example I'm going to take us through, which is this complex MBI. So enhancements to multiple products delivered by multiple development teams, significant changes in operations and supporting area needs. Right? This is the next increment of value that is complex and is going to take us a bit of time to produce. So if I went back and took a look at, again, if we were going to draw some more boxes, right? So here's all of the projects. Yeah, here's a low complex MBI, right? Here's 2 features that we could get completed, put into the hands of our customers, little impact to the operational value stream, and release it. Right? It's slightly more complex, right? Would be this. We've got one feature in our direct-to-consumer sales portal, and we have a feature, another enhancement we have to do in our inventory management system. All right. So slightly more complexity because now we've got dependencies across 2 teams. Again, we have lots of options, lots of techniques in the value stream management approach to help resolve some of that. So how do you write an MBI? Well, there isn't a prescribed way. Now, one of the ways that we have found a lot of value with is we use a business canvas format. And so I'm going to show you the types of information in this approach that we use. Again, we have a series, we have like an MBI checklist. And I really don't like using the word checklist, but it's a series of questions that you can ask for your value stream, products in your value stream, culture of the organization, a plethora of things to try and determine what you would need at a minimum, not a maximum, but a minimum to be able to capture an MBI. So bring some focus here to strategic alignment. So I'll tie this into the idealized value stream, but what we have is we have strategic outcomes, right? And so most organizations have, this organization called these things big bets. Right. So, I mean, these were set not in this value stream. These are set at the organizational level, right? These are the big things. So this particular organization liked to measure things on compound annual growth rates. So 3.25% for this organization because of its size, that was a pretty significant increase. So this value stream, direct-to-consumer sales, and other value streams, there was B2B, there was wholesale, there was physical location that was also tied into this direct-to-consumer. But those all are going to contribute on some level to these objectives, right? Amongst other things that the organization is trying to achieve. So we have initiatives, right? So initiatives are the things in the value stream that we're going to identify to be able to help support this. And those are still too big because those typically, like to do a 48% compound annual growth rate increase for a particular tier of product, in this case, ultra premium product sales, we would need multiple things to happen. And those are the MBIs that were identified. So in this case, the MBI I'm going to take us through, this particular one that this canvas is for, is to develop a global ultra premium product microsite with a very special VIP specific UX. So just to give a little context, if the typical price point for the products is say $15 to $20, these are products that are going to be like $500 to $20,000, right? Very limited reserve, very special, very low production volume. Very different look and feel from an experience that the customers are expecting when they're purchasing these types of products. So what needs to change? What are the enhancements? So here's the list of features, both in the development value stream and the products that those enhancements are for, as well as the operational and support value stream. So from an operational perspective, they needed to change how customer support was going to be provided. So pre-pandemic, I was just mentioning to Gail, there are years that I've had over 200 flights. So I had the airline of choice that I had. Well, I had a fair amount of status because I flew so much, and I had like the magic number. I had a number I could call. Somebody's going to pick up within a couple of rings, and typically help me. Right, I didn't have to wait in a 45-minute long queue like I'm going to have to do now once I start flying again. I think I've lost all my status. But that's what this was in this operational value stream. It was a different type of call support person that the customer would be interacting with because the price point was so high. And again, the organization was going towards this initiative because there was a fair amount of margin on it. And then from a support value stream perspective, this was not going to be successful without a significant marketing campaign. So the print assets, the digital assets, there was a concert series that was being sponsored, right? And that was what was going to raise awareness, amongst other things, for people to understand that, hey, you can go and now purchase these products in this portal. So one of the things that we typically recommend with organizations, and this is one that adopted this, is, well, for one, we want to determine what markets and do we have personas. So this was a global company. So this initial rollout was going to be from a global perspective. Some of the smaller MBIs were going to be the tailoring that would occur for like Asian Pacific and European and Latin America and North America, and all the different regions that they had that would need some amount of tailoring in the future. The other thing was which customers. So we've got personas. They had a number of personas, and there were some that were identified specifically to address the customers that we expected to be doing this MBI and kind of a sequence of MBIs for. So the next thing is, who's going to do the work? We need to have some awareness, because if we're going to pull this into the workflow, right, if only our direct-to-consumer sales portal team is ready and the others aren't, again, we're not going to be able to release this. Similarly to the other two value streams. So this approach starts to bring a lot of awareness to all the value-adding activities. Is the budget there? Are the people available with the amount of capacity to support this? That doesn't mean everybody's got to start day one. It just means that however long a given MBI is forecasted to take to complete, that at the right moments in time, we should be able to have a high level of confidence people are going to be available. Now, something else that's really important is it's not just, oh, hey, our direct-to-consumer sales portal team got their code written and platinum star, not even gold star, but platinum star, they got that done. That's not how we want to measure things. What we want to be doing is, in this case, we were measuring a very specific tier of product and a dollar amount, as well as categories of product. Right? This is how we were going to know that we should do the other MBIs. This is how we know that there was an uptake in this. So being able to have an MBI meet a definition of done, which again includes all three of these value streams. It includes all the value streams that are going to be contributing to value-adding activities, right? Again, we don't always have like the supporting value stream. But measurement is extremely important. The other thing is, are there risks? So there were. This was also, this MBI, right, had a dependency that there was a VIP program, but now they were coming up with a very special VIP program. Again, this was for a very particular type of customer. And that look and feel and some of the things that were being done needed to be completed to a certain level to be able to bring this MBI into the workflow to get going on it. And then there was risk identified, because in the operational value stream, there was a new position, right, a new type of customer support person that had a difference in what they, again, had in existence. So we needed to get this staffed and up to speed. The last thing is, just like stories, I mean, we need to be able to at least assign a value from a sizing perspective, right? So we can use relative estimating when we have a business backlog with MBIs in it, right? Again, we're just trying to get a relative size comparison across the work and how long it might potentially take, right? So the big takeaway that I want to leave you all with is that, the MBI, again, it's all the value adding activities that are needed, not just the development value stream. That's a critical part. And then again, the other thing that I mentioned in the development value stream is we're not having a single product focus or a very uncoordinated approach to identifying what needs to be done in the development value stream when we've got multiple products that need to be enhanced. So again, it solves the problem, right? This is a communication bridge between what we consider the business side of our value stream and the implementation side. So how that's used, how we're now going to bring that into what we call the idealized value stream. Again, just that was just the definition. And these slides that I'm using are part of a new 1-day or half-day value stream management course that we're releasing next month. So value streams always start and end with a customer. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through and build this now. In the portfolio management space, right, our strategic objectives, again, these aren't set in a given value stream. These are the big things at the organization perspective, right? So again, I showed this strategic objective in the MBI I'm looking at, right? So we're going to increase our direct consumer sales by this particular percentage. Now, we have 3 of, say, 10 strategic objectives that this value stream is helping to achieve. So there's more, it's just these 3. What we are doing next then is we're taking a look at those strategic objectives and we're trying to identify initiatives, right? What's the larger quantity of work? So that's where we're starting to get into the really big rocks. Now, for those of you that might have experience with SAFE, the initiatives that we refer to here are like epics, right? Epics are at the portfolio level within SAFE, Scaled Agile Framework, and so it's something very similar. It's big, right? So to increase ultra premium product sales by 48%, a number of things are going to happen, right? Not just one thing that we can get done typically in a couple of months. Again, for this company in their context. So the next thing that we're going to do is, well, we're going to take a look at what are those minimum business increments, and I started with one of them. So we have a whole bunch. We have some that, again, were for tailoring based on the actual geographic regions, and then there was just continued functionality that we're going to be bringing into this microsite. So if we were to kind of look at what we would be kind of, these are like chiclets, right? So we've got, our strategic objectives, we've got initiatives. And again, those initiatives, this could be 2 years worth of work. And then we have our business backlog that could be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. Again, the things that we've identified. And what we find in our idealized backlog is it kind of looks like this, right? So we've got a business backlog of those MBIs. So again, I'm going to keep kind of making a reference back to just a product backlog with stories that are in it, right? Whether they're user stories and technical stories, data stories, sometimes infrastructure stories, right? All the different types of stories we might see. So what we have is those MBIs and MVPs, but predominantly MBIs that are ordered towards the top. Those are the ones that, from a product management perspective, we're going to invest more time in. So if we look at a story, and hey, I mean, we can identify stories in a collaboration session led by a product owner. And an hour or two, we could come up with 100, 200 stories. Similar here, we can come up with these MBIs. The depth that we're going to go into through discussion, through writing in the MBI, using other techniques, again, personas, maybe customer touch point mapping to see which products they're going to be traversing through as this functionality is going to need to add value. That's what we're doing in the discovery workflow. And those MBIs that are ready for implementation, ready to be pulled into the implementation part of the value stream, right? Meet a definition of ready. So we have a definition of ready and a definition of done. They're sitting in an intake queue. So only those things that we're ready to potentially do next. And that's how we manage what we're going to be focusing on in our value flow planning events. So what happens next? Well, what we want to be able to do is then pull MBIs, not push, but pull the MBIs from the intake queue based on available capacity. right? So that's where we get into this intake backlog. And so again, I'm just going to kind of go back and yeah, we've got our complex MBI and we've got these development and we've got the operational, we've got the supporting value streams. This one's got, it's touching all of them, which is why I'm using it as an example. So what we want to do is we don't want to pull the MBI and start working on it, like start doing work if we're not ready across all three of those value streams. So that's what this is intended to represent. And yes, if we can work with the operational area and if we can work with the development value stream, we can work with our supporting areas. And at a minimum, we want to be using Kanban boards, or we want to have mechanisms in place that provide visual control, radiation of information of progress. And that's why I've got that on this diagram. But not only are we focusing on just a team in the IT organization, right, a development team, we're looking across the development value stream, in this case, at the multiple teams and when they would need to start doing their work. We're also looking at the other two because of the complexity of this one, right? And if we can't pull this first MBI, A 1.2, we would want to look to the next thing that we're ready to pull in, because if we can't get this done, but we can get something else done, we're better off, right? Just starting work isn't getting us anywhere. We have to be finishing that work and finishing it from being able to deliver the value to our customer. So here's the low complexity one, right? So we've got one where, yep, we've got a team and it's making an enhancement to a single product, and there's a small enhancement, small amount of work that needs to be done in the operational value stream. So that's the really, in a nutshell, that's the really big ideas here, is that we're trying to make decisions from the moment that we've identified something that would be of value to a customer to the moment we can put it in their hands and have a way to measure our outcomes. We're trying to identify the really small things we can do. And again, I guess as coaches, we all have things that we like to focus on. One of my focuses is always relentlessly focusing on the minimum, because we can always do more. But once we've spent that capacity, we can't do less, right? And so the MBI is something that just brings focus to that, brings focus to what we can potentially be doing. And then using other techniques that, like I said, unfortunately, between value creation structure, value flow planning, and a plethora of other things, make this actually come into action for organizations. So, I'll wrap this up before we get into any questions. How to learn more. The content here that I've been going through is based off of, it's not based on, but off of the PMI certification course, which is the Disciplined Agile Value Stream Consultant. I kind of refer to that as the crown jewel in the Disciplined Agile certification. It's a 3-day course. We deliver it in 3 days, 4 days, and 5 days, so that 8 hours is pretty challenging for the complexity of the content. This is a fantastic course. I can say that this is the feedback we've gotten from this, or my feedback that I've gotten from delivering this course is it's been some of the best feedback of any type of course that I've delivered. We also have, I was fortunate, I was in the Alpha program when this content was being created. I got an opportunity to work kind of side by side with a gentleman named Al Shalloway, who was the thought leader that this course was based off of. He was the Agile at Scale thought leader at PMI up until towards the end of the year. So Al Shalloway and I deliver the value stream consultant courses I deliver, Al and I co-deliver now, and we've created a value stream management masterclass. So we're trying to extend the learning on how to bring value stream management into organizations. And so is taking a DAVSE course from us, you get attendance for a year to a monthly master class that we have two times a month for free. That's just included. If you're interested in value stream management, we have, you can sign up monthly, sign up for the whole year. The other thing that we have, and the DAVSE course is fantastic, and it is geared for both external and internal consultants. The materials that I took you through is based off of a value stream management course that we've got that's a half day or a full day. And this is geared for executive leadership, project managers, program managers, portfolio managers, product owners, product managers. It takes what we need to see everybody kind of get awareness raised. And again, where we can move to maybe more or different techniques. I won't say more modern, but different techniques. And then we have an MBI workshop that's a half day, and we also have a value stream management assessment workshop, how to identify existing value streams, how to go through and assess, and then how to create both a transformation roadmap as well as an improvement backlog. So we have a half day workshop, the half day ones are kind of boot camp style ones. And for attending this today, so we also have a learning platform that we've recently launched. So this is where you could find out any information Success Mentors you. So it's a combination. Al Shalloway has a company called Success Engineering. We have Process Mentors. So Success Mentors is the merging of those two into this learning platform. And the U is very important. And if you use Gail VSM, Gail Value Stream Management, you get 10% off of any course that we deliver. And that coupon code would be active for, I think we set it for maybe 6 months. So it's not something the sooner the better, because then you can learn these techniques and bring them back to, your customers or your organizations. But we have lots of learning opportunities there. And with that, it is time for...
Yes, and we do have some questions in chat that.
All right. I'm
like
gonna pull over my other monitor so I can actually get.
Yeah, I kind of let them pile up, but Steve Ferreira kicked it off. He said, "How do you see development value streams and operational value streams separated in the context of DevOps?" So he did want to talk about how it works with DevOps, basically.
Yeah, sure. So the operational side again. So in Disciplined Agile, in the big picture, sometimes we call it the square onion. There is a DevOps layer. So it goes foundational, DevOps, value stream, enterprise. So within the DevOps layer, there's a blade. We see IT operations, right? So that's part of the development value stream. I mean, IT operations is supporting our digital products that we're maintaining, right, and putting new stuff out in. The operations side, the operational value stream, is just that. It is the operationalization of the content to our customers. So customer supported. Again, I'll use whether it's a bank or you have a physical product you're selling or you're a service organization. That's the operational value stream. So DevOps, right? The things that we see in DevOps, DevSecOps, DevBizSecOps. I don't know. We have a whole bunch of them, right? As it continues to grow. Yeah, that is all critical to see improvements in the DevOps sort of space, but that still is in the development value stream.
Thank you.
And we again in the course we go into that in a bit more depth.
Yeah, good question. And then Bernal had something, I think back when you were like on slide 2 or 3 about the functions. She wanted to know if they were common functions or unique functions.
Yeah, so the example that I was trying to use was that if we've got something that is a unique function to a particular product, right, then we might have a single team, or we might have, 2 or 3, 4, however many teams supporting that product. The spelling and grammar check, that's common functionality, right? So, I mean, that's an example of functionality that is common. I mean, it works the same, right? If you're in Outlook or you're in PowerPoint or you're in Word or you're in Excel. And so when we have changes, now we potentially have to make updates the way that it's consumed. Now, again, I don't work on the Microsoft Office product, so I don't know how they're architected. But it was just an example to say we do see oftentimes functionality enhancements that need to be done in multiple products. And again, that's where we get into a bit of that complexity.
Great. And then Philip Lemon asks, when Adobe updates in Creative Suite to the next generation, is that a complex MBI?
It would depend on what they're rolling out and how much of a change and how many people were involved. And without more context, I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah. I'm just going through the. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I would say that's like, it depends. Let's put our consultant hats on.
Yes, it's based on the context of that situation and how much of a change and who's involved.
Okay, and then Bernal asked, how is an MBI different from a user story?
So an MBI is a container, from a development standpoint, typically features. Now we have techniques that we can use to reserve capacity for doing just additional stories that aren't, it's just small little enhancements, paying down technical debt, keeping us in compliance or regulatory concerns, like that type of stuff, right? Quality stuff. So an MBI is going to contain features, and features then would be decomposed into stories, right? So the step-by-step process that we need to accomplish. And then again, some of those alternative behaviors and the other things that we would see as we're bringing a new capability into fruition. So stories typically, right, will have more than one to satisfy a feature, and then typically more than one feature for an MBI. So it's the bigger work, and we like to reference to Stephen Covey like the big rocks and small rocks. The MBIs are the big rocks, and we can fit small rocks and gravel and sand and even water all around them when we're using a technique like value flow planning. So we have strategies to be able to accomplish the big and the small work.
Okay, and let's see somebody asked, where would you place the concepts of minimal marketable feature and minimal marketable release in the context of your...
Excellent questions. Yeah, excellent questions. So so we used to have in DA, right, we have MVP, and then we had minimum marketable release, and sometimes there was an MVR, minimum viable release, and then we also had minimum marketable feature. So a minimum marketable feature is still a very important construct to be thinking about, because it's the bare minimum of what that feature needs to do. We put it in the hands of the customer. We still can do more. We can add additional stories to it. So the minimum marketable release is really superseded now by the MBI, the minimum business increment. The main difference is minimum marketable releases typically were seen as something that was a larger type of project. Not that they should have been, but oftentimes that's kind of just what the perception was. What we want to do with the MBI is focus on, again, it could be something we can get done in 2 weeks. It could be something that's going to take us 6, 7, 8 months or longer, because it's the smallest thing we can do to add value.
Okay. Next question is Steve Pereira wanted a reiteration of what the 4 layers were.
So we have the foundational layer, and then we have the DevOps layer. And within the DevOps layer, we have Disciplined Agile Delivery, which is for those of you that don't know DA really well, we have these hexagons called process blades. The Disciplined Agile Delivery one really focuses on the team level stuff. And then we have the value stream layer. We have content that kind of intersects value stream and enterprise, and then enterprise. Enterprise is like enterprise architecture, people management, human resources, procurement or vendor management, like the big enterprise stuff. A lot of things we'd see in our supporting value stream. Now, I will say one of the things that DA has grown up around is a lot of the decision points and the options are more of a single product focused, whether it's a single team or multiple teams. Hopefully we'll see this year in the value stream management layer, we'll see value stream management process blade or blades. And again, we have 2 different dimensions, because some organizations are still going to get a lot of benefit of just making improvements, from a single product perspective. But value stream management is looking at our products or services in a value stream, which is typically going to be more than a single product. And that's where we need to get into some of the process blade content in the big picture that really addresses that.
Thank you, Joshua. Yes, what other questions does anyone have for Joshua? I think we've run to the end of the ones in chat. Finally, I know there was a lot of great questions out there, though, and this is all really great content. I know what's great about Disciplined Agile is that it runs, across the business side and the technology side, very heavy in DevOps and all of that area, which I love to see. I'm currently working in the office of the CIO at my current Agile transformation that I'm leading, and definitely the ones that can, the frameworks that can go across the breadth and the intersection of business and technology are the ones that are the most relevant. So it's definitely has a lot of good stuff. So.
Yeah, and I can say I have delivered a number of the value stream consultant courses, and we've had people that have been in that are in physical product development that wanted to learn these techniques, and we've had people that we had somebody that wanted to learn about how they could improve like their laboratory locations and the workflow within them, because it focuses on techniques for value stream management. So Yeah, DA is definitely becoming, I think, a leader in the value stream management space, which is fantastic.
Yep, that's great. I actually have a question. I have a question about dependencies between MBIs. Are there, because I didn't really see any pictures with them, I would imagine that there would have to be dependencies tracked between MBIs.
Yeah, so we try to make sure that an MBI, just like a story, is as independent as possible. But
Okay,
sometimes that's just, we can't do that, right? So we do need to. And I had on the MBI example, there was a risk, which one was a dependency. There was work that needed to be done in this VIP program that was going to be used by the MBI to create the microsite. So
okay,
we use, dependency boards, similar to other approaches, other frameworks, right? Where we map dependencies. The main difference, whether it's at the MBI level or within an MBI, if we have multiple teams or people doing work, is we accommodate dependencies only when we absolutely have to, right? We want to look for what options we have to eliminate dependencies. And that's also something that, again, is a very important concept. Is we're always trying to eliminate dependencies. And if we can't at this moment in time, and we know we have a series of MBIs and there's going to be dependencies, what can we do to start alleviating that? And then within MBIs, again, we have dependencies across teams and across other areas that are doing these value-adding activities. Again, what can we do to minimize dependency management, the risk associated with, and all the coordination that we need to do? Again, not the easiest thing to do, but we do have very good options and strategies that can be evaluated to see how they would work.
okay, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I know Scaled Agile has the Rome boards and all that good stuff, and I was thinking it would be an
Yeah.
issue, obviously, but that's just one thing that I was curious about as you were speaking about that.
Yeah, and
So,
see, and we do a lot of that in value flow planning. And then, so that's value flow planning from a next sort of increment of time, right? So if we're doing it from a big perspective, it's what are we going to do in the next quarter? And I have a technique that we use, which I call MBI Tetris. It's how we're trying to move things around and figure out, based on capacity, what is the best approach we might be able to do in this next time period. From an MBI perspective, dependencies, coordinating activities, and so forth, we do something, again, very similar, but that's more like MBI Tetris at the feature level, right? Where we're trying to look, okay, we're better off at a single product perspective to get a feature done. We can do different dimensions of testing. We can get different types of feedback. Now, when we have MBIs that are again, we have a feature in one product and we're getting information injected from another one. Well, the moment that we can get both those features completed, again, we can get different feedback on it. We can make different decisions on did we get it right? Is it working? So we have planning techniques all the way on through to manage dependencies and also manage how we can get feedback as quick as possible.
got it. Okay, and we've got 4 minutes left. Any last questions? Well, if not, thank you very much, Joshua. Great presentation once again. Definitely very useful stuff. I will definitely take some nuggets away for my workplace, and it's great seeing everybody, seeing some familiar faces, some new faces. And once again, the presentation will come out in PDF format to participants. I'll be loading it up on the site once I get it. And then also there will be a link to the recording, since we've been recording on the cloud. So I will provide that up on the meetup site itself. So with that, I think we've reached the end. Once again, thank you, Joshua, for a great presentation as always. For those of you who are interested, he's offering lots of classes, and he's got the special discount with my name on it. So hopefully you can all make it, and hope you have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, and thanks for having me, Gail. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. All right, take care. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and
Thanks,
stop the
everyone.
recording. All right, take care. All right, bye.